No one noticed the boy. In the cold, crumbling corners of a forgotten town, tucked between rusted fences and abandoned factories, 11-year-old Eli moved like a shadow. He didn't go to school. He didn't have parents to check in on him. He didn't even have a bed. Just an old army blanket, a backpack with a broken zipper, and a small corner under a burned-out stairwell that he called home. People passed him every day. Some saw him and looked away. Most didn't see him at all. But there was one who did. A dog. A stray, just like Eli. She was thin and muddy, with one torn ear and tired eyes. She'd been limping since the first day Eli saw her. He offered her a piece of his stale bread, and she looked at him with something deeper than hunger. She looked at him like she understood. He named her Scout. From that day on, they were inseparable. Scout followed Eli through the alleys, slept beside him in the cold, and growled when strangers got too close. Eli, in turn, shared every crumb of food he found, even when it meant going hungry himself. One morning, after a stormy night, Scout started acting strange. She paced nervously at the edge of the old railroad track, whining, sniffing, then looking back at Eli as if urging him to follow. He resisted at first. The woods beyond the tracks were dense, dark, and full of rumors, tales of buried things, strange echoes, and a place kids called the zone no one returns from. But Scout didn't give up. She barked, nudged his leg, and limped ahead again. So Eli followed. The forest swallowed them quickly. The path was barely visible, littered with branches and forgotten debris. Scout limped forward with purpose, nose to the ground, occasionally glancing back to make sure Eli was still with her. They walked for almost an hour, deeper and deeper, until the trees thinned out around a clearing no one should have remembered. There, hidden beneath a collapsed canopy of vines and moss, was something unnatural, concrete. A square slab, like the roof of something buried. At its center was a rusted hatch, half covered in dirt and leaves, with faint markings barely legible beneath years of grime. It wasn't a house. It wasn't a shed. It was a bunker. Scout sat beside it and whined softly, her nose nudging the metal surface. Eli stared at it, heart pounding. He hesitated. This looked like the kind of place that had been locked away for a reason. But something about Scout's urgency made him kneel down. He brushed away the dirt with his sleeve. Faded paint revealed an old military symbol, American. World War II. He pulled at the handle. It didn't budge at first. Then, with a groan like something ancient waking from a long sleep, the hatch opened just enough to let in a thin stream of light. The air that escaped was dry, stale, and heavy with silence. Eli climbed down. The ladder was rusted but held firm. Scout waited above, watching anxiously. At the bottom, Eli found a hallway lined with concrete walls and flickering emergency lights that still hummed faintly with power. Dust floated in the air like memories. The corridor led to a small metal door. On it, in flaking paint, were 3 letters. CAT. Eli reached for the handle, but stopped. Something deep inside told him that once he opened that door, nothing would ever be the same again. Eli hesitated. The door marked CAT felt strangely alive, like it was holding its breath. The cold metal against his palm made him shiver, but not from fear, from the weight of whatever history lay behind it. With one deep breath, he turned the handle. The door creaked open. Inside was a small room, surprisingly intact. Dust coated everything, but nothing had been touched in decades. There were shelves filled with old radios, stacks of yellowing documents, and a metal table in the center with a small black box on top, about the size of a shoebox, locked and sealed with a red wax insignia. But what struck Eli wasn't the box. It was the wall behind it. A mural, hand-painted, covered the concrete. Scenes of war, drawn with raw emotion. Paratroopers falling from the sky, families huddled in basements, soldiers holding hands with children. And then, something strange. In the middle of the mural was a child's face. Not just any child, Eli's own face, almost identical, painted in charcoal, next to the figure of a dog. He stepped back, heart racing. This couldn't be real. It didn't make sense. But the resemblance was undeniable. Beneath the child's portrait, in shaky handwriting, were the words, "He will return when it's needed most." Eli turned slowly to the black box. Curiosity overrode fear. He searched the shelves and found a key taped under one drawer. It was old, small, and made of brass. It slid into the lock perfectly. With a quiet click, the box opened. Inside were several objects, a faded photograph, a folded map, and a reel of old film marked Top Secret, 1944. But the most important item was a journal, bound in leather, brittle and fragile with time. Eli opened it. The first page read, Project CAT, Civilian Anomaly Tracking. He read in silence. It was a record kept by a secret unit during World War II. They were tasked not just with surveillance and intelligence, but with locating children around the world who exhibited what they called empathic anomalies. Kids who connected deeply with others, who sensed danger before it happened, who were drawn to places, people, and sometimes animals. Children who had no family, no ties. Only a purpose they themselves didn't understand. Eli flipped through pages of detailed accounts. Children saving soldiers from ambushes, warning villages of bombings before they happened. One girl in France who led a group of prisoners to safety in the middle of the night, guided by dreams. And near the end of the journal, a case file. Subject, E47. Status, lost. Last seen, near Berlin, 1945. Note, project ended before retrieval. Expected reappearance, unknown. There was a sketch next to the file. The boy in the mural. Eli. But how? His heart pounded. Everything inside him screamed that this was impossible, but the truth sat before him, handwritten in black ink. He wasn't just a forgotten orphan. He was part of something buried, erased from history, waiting to be remembered. Scout barked above, breaking the silence. Eli grabbed the map, the journal, and the reel. He didn't know what came next. But he knew one thing for sure. He was meant to find this. He climbed out of the bunker and looked around. The world seemed different. Like something had shifted. He glanced at Scout, who now wagged her tail and licked his hand like she'd completed her mission. And maybe she had. Because that night, under a sky full of stars, Eli sat with a fire crackling beside him, the journal in his lap, and a purpose finally filling the space where loneliness used to live. What they found that day didn't just rewrite history. It gave a forgotten boy his story back.